Um, that's simple. The message was clear, but what's going on in my house is chaos. And you know why? Because we have a multitude of plastic containers and none of the lids match up. You know my pain? You've been there yourself, right? No matter how, you might have 1,000,000 lids and you'll have 1,000,000 containers and you'll never get the two will never come together, and there's nothing you can do about it. You could throw every single container, plastic container that you store your SpaghettiOs and your mac and cheese in for leftovers, and you could throw them all out, and within a week you'll get new ones and you're still going to have lids that won't match up. Isn't that true, Derek? It's chaos. That's what it is. I don't know what happened. Back in the 50s is when it all started, when a guy named Tupper, as in Tupperware, invented this product, and he used to get women to come from all over the place. Excuse me. We'd come all over to come and have these Tupperware parties where they would get exposed to the latest and greatest in plastic containers. Can you imagine doing that today, right? When you have all these available to us? Whatever would we do without plastic and Tupperware? I have no idea. But they had to figure it out, because before the 50s, you had to find something to store your stuff in. And of course, what Jeremiah has alluded to is that they used to use clay pots to do that with. In fact, they were so important, the clay products, that every little village had their own potter who would make the things, a pot for carrying water or for storing food or for utensils or dish, whatever it is, they would make them out of clay. And so Jeremiah uses this analogy of a potter to help us understand a clearer picture of who God is and what God is trying to do in our lives. And that's where we're going today. We're going to explore this story, which is a classic Old Testament story, and see what might apply to our lives. Now, anybody like potters? I mean, you like what they do? Are you fascinated with how they can just take a lump of something and turn it into something amazing? I figure someday I'm gonna have a lot of free time. Whenever. I'm not sure when that day is, but I really want to do that. I'd love to figure out how to throw a pot. I've wanted to do that since junior high when I saw my teacher doing it. Haven't found the time yet. And one thing I've learned, though, is that it is not easy. It looks easy when they're doing it, but it is really hard. You have to have incredible control over that lump of clay to get it to turn out like you want it to. And I've seen artists do it. They're experts because they know first of all, what it is they're trying to create. And they have all the hands, the perfect hands, to make sure they shape it in just the right way. Now, God works in the same way in our lives. God is the ultimate potter of the universe, right? And God has a vision for what it is we're supposed to turn out like. And it's with His hands that He will create something amazing, something spectacular with your life and my life, if we are willing to let Him use His hands on us. But so many people, and believe me, there's a lot of you out there, and me included in this, is so often we say, no, God, I got this. No, I'll take care of this. I'm going to shape things the way I see fit. I'm going to do things the way I see fit. Some people even yell at God, God, listen, I've got this. Don't worry about it. Get your hands off of me. I'm going to handle this myself. Of course, what happens when you do things without God? How does that lump of clay turn out? Mostly like a lump of clay. Instead of having this vision that God has for you, this incredible storyline that God has for your life, all you end up with is a rather grotesque image of God, a broken image of God, an unfulfilled image of God, an unfinished image of God. That's what you end up with. And so many people go through their lives thinking, I've got this, and it's really my hard work and my effort and my determination and my gifts, everything that my that has got me to where I am in life, that has made me successful or made me think that I've got control of things. And the reality is captured in one of the Proverbs. It's in chapter 6, verse 9. Chapter 16, verse 9, where it says, we can make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps. When you think about it, that first step you took when you got up this morning, was that by your grace that happened, or was that God's grace that you took a step today, that you even woke up, that you even started your day? Everything you have Everything that you've been given. Every gift that you had, every joy that you experience is a gift from God, and it's by His grace that you experience life in the way God would like you to. But if you keep throwing up your hands and say, I've got it, you'll suffer the consequences of doing it your way. You know, it's interesting. Back to the potter again is, you know, when a potter begins a project, they got to stick with it. Because if they walk away for too long from that spinning wheel and the moisture just, you know, evaporates eventually, right? And if they stay away too long, that pot will just harden right where it is. And that's one of the concerns I have for people that step away from God, is that their hearts become hardened in the same way a pot becomes hardened when they're not close to God. And a hardened heart isn't very receptive to having God's hands work on them. So it's pretty vital that we continue to remain close to God, or we are never going to get the image that God has wants for us. And the thing is, what really happens to us when we have this hardened heart and we're away from God is we start to hold on to things in our lives that are actually impurities. You know, what happens to a pot that has a lot of impurities, like maybe has a chunk, a lump of sand or something instead of nice pure clay, is that, you know, the potter's got to start over again. And we're just like that. We've got impurities in us, imperfections in us, things that are wrong with us, and yet we will grasp them like for all our life. It reminds me of a story about this little kid that stuck his hand down in his mom's prized vase, right? And he starts crying for his mom. Mom, I can't get my hand out of the vase. And she comes and she puts soap and water and is trying to get the thing off. Nothing will help. Finally, she got to take a hammer and she gives it a good whack, and of course the vase crumbles, and there the little guy is with his hand clenched in a tight fist. And his mom's looking at him and said, "Did you have your hand like that the whole time?" So why in the world would you kept your hand clenched like that? Well, Mama, I was trying to hold on to the penny that I had been reaching for on the bottom of the vase. Boy, isn't that a picture of where we are in our sins? We'll hold on to them and grasp them and not let go of them. They are so important to us, all that we think is important, and we won't let it go. Is that something you do? I know I've done that. Is that something you do as well? That's the way you need to remember that God is trying to work with you. God is trying to help you, but you're going to have to let go of something. And the thing you got to let go is the idea that A, you are in control. B, that it's your gifts that finally got you to what it is you are in your life. And C, all the imperfections that you have, you need to let them go. Let them go. Because God has this vision to you that's captured in Romans chapter 8, verse 29. For God knew His people in advance, and He chose them to become like His Son. God wants you to be in the image, to live in the image of Jesus Christ. Well, since that is the most pleasing thing to God, that you turn out that way, that you're amazing, that you're wonderful, that you look great inside and out, that's what would pleases God the most, is that I think we have to realize that no matter where we are in our life right now, that is possible. I mean, it doesn't matter where you've come from. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter what mistakes you've made. It doesn't matter where you walked in the past. Where you're going in the future is what concerns God, and that's who is going to be there to help shape your life and to reshape you into this image of Christ. And keep this in mind. You know, it took a long time to get you where you are today, right? No matter where you are, it took a long time to get there. And this process, this transformation and reshaping who you are is going to take time as well. So you have to be patient with the process that God has put in place for you. And you know, and when God starts the process, just like the potter reshapes that lump of clay, remember that it got built up and all of a sudden he collapsed it? You notice that after centering it on the spinning wheel, that the artist, the potter, will put their thumbs inside, right into the heart of that piece of clay, right? And shove a lot of pressure down there. And all of a sudden, after enough pressure, they separate it, and then they start to bring up the pot, the vase. And there's a lot more pressure at the beginning than there is an end. It's quite easy to shape a vase at the very end. Now, you think about your own life. And in this particular analogy, the spinning wheel, the potter's wheel, represents life for us. And you know how the world turns. Sometimes we are given some things we can handle, and sometimes we are overwhelmed by some of the things that life gives us. Some things are good, some things are really hard. But you know what? God uses those items in our life, those things that stress us, those things that push us, those items in our lives that jab at us and whatnot. God is using those to soften us like the heart of the pot. That it's pressure. But you know, sometimes we're so stubborn that the only way we realize and recognize that God is in control is that He puts a little pressure on us so that we don't forget who's actually in control. You know, if there was nothing in your life that irritated you, you wouldn't think of God ever. Isn't that true? I mean, if life was perfect, if you lived in this panacea of perfection, if you lived in the Garden of Eden right now, you would never even think about God. So every once in a while, God needs to give you a wake-up call, a reminder, just to let you know that God is alive in the world. God is shaping the world, and He's in control, not you. But at some point in this process, with enough pressure, I hope you realize that it's maybe time to move. You know, and I get reminded at our CR meetings, our Celebrate Recovery meetings, that, you know, when you hit the bottom with an addiction or you hit the bottom with something that's going on in your life, it isn't always just problems with drugs and alcohol, but you hit the bottom. That's at the point you realize that you're receptive to God at that moment. That's when you say, take me, God, because I can't handle this anymore. I can't fix this problem myself. And it's at that point that you say, put your hands back on me, God. And you allow Him to shape, and you have the faith to know that He's got His best interest in mind for you. You know, back in 2009, I shared a story with the congregation, and true story. And Derek, you were in it. Because it was about a good friend of yours, a little kid. Remember Cameron from your old church? Well, Cameron, when he was about 10 and same age as Derek, had been struggling with Asperger's syndrome. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a neurological disorder that can really wreak havoc on a little guy's life, because it affects your motor skills, your development, your speech patterns, and your behaviors. It really is a very, very hard journey for a little guy to deal with. And this little guy named Cameron was trying to go to school, have a normal life, but because of the nature of the kids, you know, they were picking on him and making his life a living hell. So Mom had to take him out of school, and she was homeschooling. But he would come to church every Sunday. And again, one of the symptoms of Asperger's disease is when you get into a loud environment and a noisy environment, like a classroom full of kids after Sunday school, Cameron would have a meltdown. And I don't mean just a fit. I mean, he would have a meltdown. And I don't know if you don't remember this, Derek, but Sarah, Cameron's mom, wrote this about you, actually. She said, Derek used to clear the decks and make everybody give Cameron space and not let anyone talk to him so he could recover. Well, there was a point, though, when they tried everything with their son. Tried all the medical, the psychological, it's a difficult process to get through to try to deal with Asperger's syndrome. And so they tried one more thing, and a bit of it out of desperation, admittedly, but a whole lot of it because of Cameron's mom's faith, sent them to Austin, Texas. They both went to Austin, Texas, and attended a healing ministry for kids that struggle with Asperger's syndrome. It was a long weekend they spent there, and when they came back, she wrote this in an email. She said, today, Cameron is a regular little boy now. That alone is all I thought I could ever ask for. God is so generous that He parts the curtain and we can see that He has His hand on our son's life. And his future is going to be even better than we dreamed. And that turned out to be absolutely true. It wasn't long ago that I ran into Cameron. He's a big, giant guy, and his life is going fantastic. I think he's off to college and getting ready to go to college now and doing his thing. And this is an amazing, true story about a kid that had no chance, but God reshaped him because of mom's faith and helped this kid become a whole new person. And that is the message that God wants you to hear as well. There is something in you that can change and will change if you give up control and give your life over to Jesus. Things can be radically different from the way they are right now if you're willing to do that. And Paul says it eloquently. This is something you can hold on to because God is not finished with you yet. And he says this, but we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. And we are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed. We're perplexed, but not in despair. We're persecuted, but not abandoned. We're struck down, but not destroyed. We always carry around in our body the death of Jesus, so that in the life of Jesus may be also revealed in our bodies. Paul's saying, you're the vessel. Inside you is Jesus. You just have to let him come out and work with you. He's always available to you. And I think one of the things that we do in celebrating communion together is just accepting that we do have imperfections. And I ask you that you leave them right here today. That whatever it is that's going on in your life that's causing flaws, that's causing you to think that you're in control, that's causing you to think that you're better than and you don't need God, leave them here. Because you have so much potential to be even more, to be literally created in the image of Jesus. So I invite you to come forward and accept that gift that Jesus has for us. And I'll remind you of what it is that he gave us so long ago. This reenactment of a special time for these disciples when Jesus conveyed to them his future and what it would mean to them. And the story hasn't changed in 2,000 years. It's here somewhere. Communion. Well, lo and behold, my helper isn't here today. Here it comes. In the meantime, let's sing a song. Boy, I was all set to go, too. Ready? One little thing. Well, what did I just say about best laid plans, right? What is Proverbs? You make the plans and then there you go. Yeah, we'll make the most of it. Let's do this, gang. I don't want you to miss communion. Do we have enough to go around for today? I bet we do. The answer is bring up, we'll make it work. Come on, lady, bring it up. Maestro, some background music if you would. Well, let me set this table for you if I could in the meantime. Lord, you gave us this time together that we could celebrate the death of your Son, that it would be meaningful to us. And in that regard, you gave us these elements, simple bread and simple wine that help us with this celebration. And so the night before you died, you took this loaf of bread and held it up before everybody that was gathered for this special meal. Gave thanks to God and reminded everybody, this is my body broken for you. And when the meal was concluded, he took an ordinary cup of wine, held it up high, and gave thanks to God again. And he told your disciples that this is my blood poured out for you in a new covenant, an opportunity to start over again, to rebuild my life and let your hand shape me. So come forward now and receive this gift of regular old bread. It's a gift. Come forward now that we might experience this time together of renewal and reshaping.